Greetings, brothers and sisters. I'm Professor Spira, and I'm here with Tony Boliby, and we want to kind of do a question and answer video. These are more questions that were directed to me, and over the past couple of weeks, I've started getting like a ton of questions coming in and different, and I have so many accounts and things going at the same time that it's starting to get harder to kind of really respond to all of them properly and really get into them. And then sometimes I'll get questions of things that I might have already answered in certain blog posts or my books or whatever, so, but when I get a question that I haven't gotten in a while, or maybe I haven't done a video of it or something, I like to try to have the most common questions covered different places. So in this video, I'm just kind of going down the line. I got several different questions from people, and just want to go on ahead and go through them. But say what's up to Tony. What's going on, man?
Hey, greetings, Spira. Just enjoying my transition.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
And so what I'll do is I won't name. I thought about naming the first name, but some of these were posted on public places, and some of them were private messages. So I won't say a name for right now. In the future, I think what I'm going to do is have everybody ask me questions sort of in the same place. So probably my Professor Spira fan page on Facebook, somebody posts a question to that to my wall on there, then I'll kind of answer it, do the in these periodic question and answer videos, and just once I get enough questions up, I'll try to do another one of these videos, because they're we'll see how this goes. The bit of inspiration.
Yeah.
Dr. Morris, I've been going to do something like this for a while, but been answering I've been kind of answering most things through writing or through blog posts and stuff, so I think this will be good. So the first question: started to do enemas, but nothing is coming out. It's only the water that is, and am I doing something wrong? So I do believe this is something that I talk about a bit in Spira Speaks, because this is something a lot of people experience this when they first start to cleanse, they first start to transition, they first start to do enemas. And from my experience, what happened to me was, and it happened for a while. It was like the first couple weeks. Like, that's how gluey the fecal matter, and I had all those like decades old feces stones that were up in there that I saw come out. That's why I hate it when these people come and say, no, there's not all that. That's not all up there, and this hardened, crusty stuff. That's not how it is inside. I've seen it come out, and it doesn't. That kind of stuff doesn't come out years later when you're practicing the Mucusless diet. Once you get some of that stuff out, unless you go back to eating a lot of mucus-forming foods and you're not doing any enemas or fasting or something, then that doesn't really, that's not a part of your life anymore. But for those first couple weeks, for those first month, for those first 2 months, I don't think I had the black slime elimination for 2 months of my my transition, and it happened. I started transitioning. I did it without enemas for maybe a month or two, and I was really having trouble getting off of meat, because I would maybe go a week, and then those poisons would be circulating. I would be doing good eating kind of mucusless and a lot of fruits and stuff. Stuff would be circulating, and then I would be like, well, and then I would rationalize it in my head like, well, this is longer than I've ever gone not on meat, so if it's been a week or if it's been 2 weeks, then let me go splurge, and I get a hamburger somewhere, or something like that. And like I said, the Taco Bell bean burritos, boy, that was woo. I mean, you want to talk about transition, boy. I mean, that
yeah, I got into those myself.
Oh man, I was like, I mean, cause see, this is, and I'm gonna try to share a little bit more, like, cause it's, for a lot of this stuff is like the early days, but a lot of people are starting to have these conversations about transition and what it takes to get from point A to point B. The transition is messy, and part of the art form for me has been to refine it over years, to refine the process of the transition so that it can become more elegant. In the beginning, you know, and I could kind of talk about it the way I do because I've seen that, and I've worked my way in toward the elegance of it, and I see how elegant it can be, and you know, kind of what it takes to get there. But within the context of its elegance, part of what makes it so profound is there is a period of, for me, it was just like a hardcore kind of attitude, like it, you know, kind of that. I think that is best described through the attitude of a lot of just sort of the black hip hop music kind of vibe, where it's just like, I'm gonna do whatever I need to do. This is what I need to do. I'm gonna go do my enemas. I'm gonna eat this. I'm gonna do this, and it's just like it's just this constant like pushing myself. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. What's, you know, like what? A lot of y'all might not feel that, you know, because that's where I was coming from, you know, coming from in my personality and stuff, you know. So some of y'all might be coming from a different sort of, you know, like a yoga side, but like a mucus yoga side, you know. So you gotta find that burning and that passion and whatever that is for you, however that translates, where, because it comes down to a conviction and a focus, like this is what I'm doing, and nothing's gonna get in my way of this. And so back to the enema, at least for, you know, for a while, you could be doing enemas, and what starts to happen is, if you got this dried kind of, you know, and it's not like it's dried right on the outside, it's like it's toward the walls of the intestines. Most people, they do an enema, they're not going nowhere near the actual wall of their intestine. I mean, that water is not going to be touching their wall, the wall of the intestine. And you can see when they do, you know, colonoscopies on people, they put them through a fairly rigorous laxative process, which I'm against the way that they do that. Definitely, that I'm not into any kind of unnatural chemicals and stuff used the way they do it for a lot of the laxatives. But and then if you watch the video, and I did a review of one of those videos, and you can see where people that hadn't cleansed, even though they had this really rigorous laxative, some of them you can just barely see the walls, and it's totally encrusted in slime, all up and down. And the only reason that you're not seeing even more of it was because they had this really radical laxative kind of thing. You know, and some of those people, you can see how it's old, and it's like some of it's real thick, and it's, you know. And so what happens, I think, is as you start to do the enema, sometimes that water actually absorbs into the waste, and that waste isn't loose enough to really form a you know, a ball or anything. It's just you start to alkalize this fetid waste that is just totally encompassing your colon. And so as it does that, you can do an enema and then nothing comes out, and it's crazy. You do an enema and you're like, where did I just put all this water up here? Where did it go? It's like it's not all coming back out, and that's what's happening. You know, it's absorbing into the filth, and it's gonna take time. So if you're eating the transition, getting in your big raw salads, your fruit, your stewed fruit, cooked vegetables, whatever, wherever you're at, and even some of the more transitional mucus-forming things, but it's gonna be better than what you did eat, and that's gonna start help moving. And so that now you're on the system. So as long as you're focusing on the system, eventually it's gonna move. But it takes the system. It's not really one isolated thing, because some people try to do that. They'll be like, well, they focus all this energy on enemas, but they never really try to do anything with their diet. Or people that try to deal with the diet, but they're scared to do enemas, and there's just not gonna get the kind of results that a lot of people really want, you know, out of the diet, you know, especially in the beginning. And it's a struggle. You know, it's a struggle getting off of some of those really you know, crazy foods and stuff in the early days. But Tony, you got something to add to that?
Yeah, you know, I'd agree with with what you had to say, and I might actually know who this person is because I got a very similar message just a day or two ago, and we went back and forth. Yeah, I think that a major part of it is that the feces is just so sticky that it's just not moving. Um, and so I know with myself, I use that as a reason to get pretty aggressive in the beginning because I wanted to test Eric's whole hypothesis about this waste being in the system. Um, I've always been a skinny person, and so I'm listening to 10, 20 pounds of waste in the intestine, and I'm like, could this be possible? Um, so pretty much for me, it was like a fruit meal for lunch and a pretty rough lemon juice salad in the evenings. And I actually use kale, so that's a pretty rough green, and it just really kind of swept my intestines. And then I would just hit the enema. Sometimes, honestly, I don't tell people to do this, but sometimes I'd hit it 5, 6 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like the first 2 months. I would just do an enema constantly, like right when I woke up, before a meal, after a meal, before the next meal, after the next meal, and then at night. And yeah, it took at least 2 weeks for me to see the waste start actually moving. And then the waste that was coming out, it was very clear that this was not the kale and fruit that I was eating, and I just started eliminating tons of waste that was like hard and just like you said, the feces stones. And it did take about 2 months to start eliminating the black sludge, and that was a pretty profound experience. So I think that when somebody's trying out the enemas, it can be a good time to get aggressive, at least for the first 2 weeks, just to see the stuff start moving, and then maybe apply a more gentle transition with maybe more mucus lean if that's what they're craving. But yeah, for me, the first 6 months was pretty aggressive. The only mucus lean option I would apply was toast in that time, and maybe a little bit of olive oil on the salad. And that was another key. Yeah, it was the olive oil, because I would make olive oil and lemon dressing on a kale salad, and that allowed me to eat like a really large kale salad. And that just really pushed things through my system. So yeah, the first few enemas, you might just get water coming out, and you just got to keep going. It's not a time to relax. And that's what I'd have to say on that.
Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, that's where it's at, man. This is there's definitely an element of this at times where I don't know, is a fearless, it's kind of a fearlessness coming from where we're coming from, because we've been so brainwashed and indoctrinated into this sort of very narrow-minded kind of reality when it comes to what we're allowed to question, what we shouldn't question, what we're supposed to do, what the way we're supposed to think. And so the whole notion of going down this path can be scary for a lot of people. So I don't know. I've always appealed, and again, like I'm getting back to what I was talking before, I would kind of appeal to that hype that they have a part of there's certain demographics or cultures or areas of particular communities that sort of have this whole tough guys routine, of like this sort of, this, yeah, I'm fearless, or I'm this, and I'm hard, and I'm better, just this attitude. And so what I did was, well, let me put that attitude to the test with this piece. Can I be fearless
Mm.
with this? Can I be
Right.
hard with this? Can I confront my inner demons and go as far off the reservation as anybody can go with this piece. Um, in terms of and when I say off the reservation, that's the way people look at you. So
Mm.
are you prepared to have people look at you like you're crazy? And so what I did was just I just kind of embraced that for a moment, like whatever, who cares what these people think? Uh, but
Mm. Yeah.
and
Yeah. For me, man, it was like I realized pretty early on that the toughest thing you can do is something like this. And, I was going to push that to the limit because there was, I'm not like, I wouldn't say I'm the toughest person, but when you get into this thing, it's like you become comparable to the toughest person you could know. And you gotta just accept that, like, look, let me try to find the toughest person I can, and I bet they can't do this, and
right,
so so that it's not like an ego booster. It's just like lets you know how serious this thing is,
right,
and and like being aggressive with it. For me, it wasn't so much like it wasn't so much like an outward display of like I'm fearless and I'm pushing. For me, it was like with my personality was let me find something out because I understood, like when I read the book, I understood exactly what Eric was saying, but that didn't mean that I was going to just believe it. I was like, let me test this. Let me really, really see if meat and dairy has had this effect on my body. Um, and another interesting thing for me is I was already vegan for a number of years. So, but I had never done enemas and I had never ate mucusless. So my question was like, how far can I take this as far as um, was the kind of veganism that I was doing, was that really the answer? I was eating the beans and the grains and uh, all kind of stuff. I'd become like a little like pro chef type person with my vegan diet, and
mm,
was always cooking up meals and everything. And uh, when this knowledge hit me, it was like, okay, it's time to really test everything that I've learned about this vegan world. Um, and I started doing the enemas, man, and it was like, okay, this is meat, this is dairy, uh, primarily.
mm,
Um, so that was when I realized, this thing is so different than any vegan diet book that I'd ever been exposed to, and just kept testing it, man. And you just start having these downloads. Some people say downloads. You just start realizing, like, wow, this point that Eric made was true. This point that Eric made was true. Uh,
mm.
and so you just start
Right,
checking off the boxes. Like, okay, I don't even need to believe this or nothing. Like, I have firsthand experience now,
right.
and that's, if anything, that's what the enema can do for you, is it can actually allow you to test some of these things. Because I've seen people try the diet um, and not apply the enemas, and they just don't really go as far
Hmm.
because this waste is so sticky, it's so clogged up, and it's so just like coating the intestines and in the within the intestinal wall, um, and it's in all the crevices of the intestines, and it's covered by mucus, and then there's like a little hole through the middle of the intestines where what you're eating is just going past all this waste, um, and it's like the enemas allow you to get out that waste that's in the colon, and that allows your intestinal system altogether to start squeezing and start acting right. um, it's like the minute that colon gets empty, the intestines itself starts being able to excrete more waste into the colon for elimination. So you just,
Yeah.
they say that the enema doesn't reach the small intestine and such, but what it does do is it clears the colon and allows the intestines itself to get stronger and start pushing waste into the colon for elimination, the waste that wasn't coming out because the colon itself was so sticky and clogged. So it's a vital and piece.
Yeah, yeah. And here's my disclaimer. Here's my enema disclaimer, because that's always gonna be the thing that for people that are on the outside, it's gonna look kind of scary. And so what I say is, um, that if you want to get on the transition and try to eat mucusless and do the diet without the enemas, you'll be my guest. There's nobody's twisting your arm or saying if you're not, you got to do this. It's like I don't care what anybody does. I don't care what you eat. I don't, if you want to be educated and understand what others have done and really get into the content of Eric's work, because those of us, we're bonded by and have a relationship around the experiences that we've had based on having read Arnold Ehret's work and other people that have been inspired by him. And so that's our common bond. And so we come to the table and we share what has worked for us and what has worked for other people. And those of us that have been doing it long enough where we can kind of analyze things, we bring our observations to the table. And so we say, transition, that was a big hole in most people's practices, is really, really getting into a serious analysis and practice of the transition, because too many, a lot of people are coming from these other systems, dietary belief systems, and they on the surface they might seem like they should go along with Eret, but when you get into it, you notice that they don't, because Eret's thing is like this other thing. And so what I did and what I suggest people do when you get into Eret is leave some of that other stuff. I'm not saying not to say forget it, but as Brother Eret sometimes say, leave it on the mantelpiece for a moment. Just, okay, let me put this over here. Let me put these theories. Let me try not to see if I can force these other theories into what Eret's talking about. Let me try to take Eret on for face, just sort of where he's at, and practice it for a while, because that's the other thing. The two things is read the book and then practice, because you're not going to get at anything out of sort of trying to theorize and deal with the philosophy when you're not doing it. And so as far as the animals, like I said, you do what you want. And the thing is that, like I said, there's different levels all over the place. You could do them exactly the way, however you interpret what Eret had to say. You can do them that way if you want to just do water enemas. Eret was very very clear about, very emphatic about that enemas were basically for him mandatory during fasting periods, because it's kind of dangerous to not do them, just with the waste is coming out and all this kind of stuff. There's people that disagree with that. It's fine, but I agree with Eret on that particular point. Then, but read the section where he talks about internal baths. And the internal bath section is the part that kind of, depending on how you want to interpret that and practice that, that kind of leaves it open for you to do what you need to do in terms of regular use of enemas. And so that's
Yeah.
where that's at, and
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, I always try to frame it as using enemas as an art. you know, if somebody hears me say, oh, I did 5, 6 enemas a day sometimes in the beginning, um, I'm not saying that I just do 5 or 6 enemas every day all the time. It's an art, and the best way to situate your enemas is really a way that you're actually having a natural bowel movement, and then you might do an enema.
And
Um,
and that's what's
you
discussed in
know,
the internal baths section.
yeah,
Like the way it's framed is
yeah,
that. I mean, that's the context of do a bowel movement, and every time you have a bowel movement, if you want to clean your colon out, because what are you doing? The stickiness. Where does the stickiness come from? It comes from the mucus and the mucus-forming foods. Because those of us that have done long fasts or have eaten fruit for months at a time will tell you that the bowel movements are no longer sticky when you're mucus free and you're relatively clean. If you can be on fruit but you never really cleaned yourself, and you're still gonna be sticky. But if you've cleansed yourself for a while and then get on where you're eating nothing but fruit or something for a while, then you will see that your bowel movements are not sticky anymore. There's no residue. There's almost no need for toilet paper, because what human in nature needs toilet paper?
hmm
Because that's a human invention, and I can say that you get to the point where you really, you still use it instinctively. You never know what's going on. So I'm not saying don't use toilet paper, but what I'm saying is you get yourself clean enough and you're on the diet that we're actually supposed to be on, and you don't need, toilet paper. It's only when you start eating the mucus-forming foods, and then you're sitting there, going through like wads of toilet paper,
yeah.
and that kind of thing. And so, but who else is going to tell you about that than somebody that has been on fruit or been mucusless? I mean, this is what we bring to the table. And those are the kind of things that let you know when people start talking like that and they have these experiences and they can tell you about them, that lets you know they're doing something, that they're working, that they're getting into something. Like, okay, I hear you. And that's what me and Brother Air used to always say, is we watch people and we've seen people come and go for years, and he's seen them many more years than me come and go. And he can tell when somebody's really serious and really applying the principles because of the kind of things that they say, the kind of experiences they say they have, the kind of questions they start asking. It becomes very apparent when somebody is getting into it. And I'll address one other question that I remember getting that I didn't respond to on the forum with the enema piece. I had mentioned in a post on this topic of enemas, and I said, sort of pig off the point that you just said with enemas being an art form, an overall tool of the grand art form of the transition diet. There's sometimes when you want to lay off the enemas, or you want to do less of them, or you want to do less lemons, or just water, or there's all these different elements. And Owen had asked. He was like, well, what are the instances where you would do that? I mean, and it just depends on each individual case. In cases where there's folks that might have really crazy adrenal weakness or endocrine gland kind of issues and stuff, then you might deal with the herbal and the GI brooms and the herbal bowel formulas. You can go down that road for a minute, and and you get built back up, but eventually you can come back. And but like I said, it's an art form. You go with it. But everybody that's starting out on the diet, well, not everybody, but in most cases, I mean, I haven't really had a case yet where we're right at the beginning, they couldn't do like at least one or two. And so there's a lot of cases out there, but it's my message is to understand the principles and work on these things with yourself, and you will and you will, if you're working with people and trying to give them advice and stuff, you'll know a little bit better in terms of, okay, well, do do this, or we'll try a lemon rind enema, kick it up. I just did one of those today. It'd been a while since I actually did that. That brought back some good memories. But so it's like anything else. You work with it and you see where it can take you. And so all right, let's go to, this is the second question. And person asked, and again, I'm not going to name the name since I don't have to. People, I didn't get permission to say, well, can I do your question? It says, I'm still having inflammation under my feet, and can you help? So basically, inflamed feet, and so when we get into these ailments, the foundation of all these ailments are going to be the acids, and these acids are much of them are created by the residue of pus and mucus forming foods that have become a part of your body that they never eliminated because we ate too much of them. The kidneys didn't filter properly. It wasn't able to go through the bowels, and this stuff starts to circulate, recirculate, and eventually you get a very acidic system and a stagnant lymphatic system. And anybody that wants to hear more about kind of the lymphatic analysis in terms of mucus-free perspective, I would direct you to check out. There's like the Great Lymphatic System video, Dr. Morris. There's some good, that's a piece that he really brought to the table. I mean, Eric talks about lymph. He mentions lymph, and he kind of, but some of the things that they discover just in terms of anatomy, observation, because a lot of times, because you can study it, physiology and anatomy, but for the most part, you almost have to extract theories of metabolism, but you can look and see the different, but you can look at the theories that they do have about why certain glands or what they do and the chemistry and all that kind of stuff, but you have to be very critical in terms of your final analysis and really put a mucusless perspective when you try to do that kind of thing. But that's what I think Dr. Morris does largely. But in terms of inflammation, stagnant lymph system, it's a lymphatic system, not filtering, so on and so forth, as they always say. But you go through these eliminations, and for you, that just might be a particular eliminations. I've went through eliminations where I would get sort of like that lymphedema stuff on like one ankle and foot. So my foot and ankle and bottom part of my calf, like it was like all these acids had went down to my foot and leg and was just sitting there, and it was in my leg. It was like that Professor Clump type of, I don't know if anybody get that reference from the Nutty Professor, but there's this scene where he has his leg is like this fat, kind of leg thing, and it almost reminded me of back when I was fat. Because my kind of looked like that, it kind of was like, it scared me just because it looked like my old body came back for a second on one part of myself. But the trials and tribulations of the transition, you just gotta stay. You gotta stay in fruits and vegetables, transition, get your enemas in there, get your fasting in, whatever, you just got to stick with it. But these kind of things happen with you at your feet. With some other people I know, it was their jaw. They had a lot of problems with their teeth because their lymph system up here sort of just sat here. All these acids, none of this stuff was filtering, and these acids just sort of sat all along the gum line. And that's what happens sometimes with the people that do the extreme long-term fruit diets, like the Stanley Basses of the world. If they have a particular weakness or a propensity to hold lymph fluid up here, your teeth are over. That's it. That's why people will lose their teeth in an elimination, and they want to try to blame the fruit. The fruit didn't make you lose your teeth. You never transitioned. You never got the got the rid of the stuff and allowed it to filter. Um, so that's all that is. I mean, it's just lymphatic stagnation, mucus stagnation, whatever you want to call it, and you basically just got to clean yourself up. Check your urine. You can see if your kidneys are filtering, that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it's part of collateral damage. We got to go through these eliminations and try to get to the other side. And so yeah, you got anything to add on that?
I don't have too much on that one. I think you gave a good response. The only thing I would add as a kind of, just being a simple mucusless diet practitioner, I would add that when I have experienced some of these things is a lot of times, man, I just take it as a sign to just keep going. I don't try to like really get too concerned. If there's a major issue, then that's a reason to get concerned. But something like a little bit of swelling in an ankle or something like that, or maybe my leg is feeling like a little bit limp or something, like I just use that as a reason to keep on going. And the best thing for me is usually to apply like a short fast, and then just like keep doing whatever level I was at. So yeah, but I think you gave a good response on that.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on. This will be a quick one. Somebody posted, I think they posted in the forum. They said, did Brother Air really do 40 days with no liquids? Did he do enemas? So from what I know, and just, I wasn't, anytime somebody tells you something, you just like, well, you're like, yeah, I mean, I wasn't there with him 24 hours a day when he was doing it, but I've been with him and on a daily basis, different times when he was doing really long fasts, not dry fast, but I know he does do a lot of dry fasting, and he said, yeah, he's done 40-day dry fast, and I think now he's even done ones longer than that. I'll have to next time Brother Air's on here, we'll talk about that. Maybe we'll get into some of those discussions. But at the same time, again, for me, that's not the best question to ask Brother Air. The kind of question that you want to ask Brother Air is, what have you been doing for the past 40 years that enabled you to be able to do something like a 40-day dry fast? Because again, we don't promote that. I don't promote any dry fasting. When people do that, that's cool, that's their thing, and I've done it myself, and Brother Air does it. There's a certain, but we look at that as an advanced level mucusless diet practitioner piece that really doesn't need to be discussed with most people right now, because that's one of those, like, all right, you've been into the diet 20 years, 30 years, now let's have a conversation about your dry fasting practices. But for most people, your water fasting, your lemon, if you want to be really the super astringent and aggressive, there's the nothing but lemon juice fasting. So there's a lot that you can do in terms of that realm. Now, in terms of his dry fast, you say, did he use enemas? Yeah, he would have used enemas, and of course, like he addresses that, where some people say, well, you're doing enemas and that's water or whatever. But again, we don't think like that. We don't think like because this isn't we're trying to heal ourselves. This isn't about like Ripley's Believe It or Not, trying to be hip, trying to be cool. I'm trying to be like better than other people, and I'm fast and all this kind of stuff. We Brother Air shares his story not because he wants you to like try to do that, like this is what you need to be doing it in terms of like long fasts and stuff. He basically would try to share that kind of thing just to say, look what the potential is. Look at how we've been lied to in terms of the medical establishment, because he shouldn't be living if what they said was true. So all that's supposed to do is raise questions and awareness that there's some things going on that are that are totally misunderstood, that are beyond what most people kind of conceive of. But these are very hard conversations to have because most people kind of aren't able to kind of find that middle way. And I've been wanting to make this video for a long time where I talk about the mucusless diet as the middle way. And for people that are into Buddhism and stuff, they'll kind of appreciate that or respond to that or understand that, because mucusless diet, in terms of the plant-based world, is the only diet that encapsulates the entire thing, from indefinite fasting all the way back to vegetarianism. This is the system, and it's about your transition and perpetual cleansing. So you want to find a place that is comfortable. You want to find foods that you really like, that you can eat, and you can go do what you need to do in the world. And you want to have these long periods of doing that. But by applying the system, you're still doing some enemas, you're still fasting periodically, so you never really get stuck in sort of this grind of where you start going back in the other direction. You can be continually moving toward elevated levels of mucuslessness. But so I mean, that's basically what I say to that. I mean, yeah, I believe Brother Air. I have no reason to not believe him, and I've seen him do some amazing things. And so yeah, but at the same time, like I said, I've done some of my own things so that kind of thing really isn't impressive to me. These long dry fasts in that kind of manner, that's not the part that's impressive to me. What's impressive is some of the stories that I heard about his transition, some of the things that he did in the first 10 years, in the first 15 years, things that he chose to eat that were mucus forming, and the way that he chose to eat them so that he could get off of them permanently. These are the methodologies that are going to help anybody that's truly serious about doing this thing long term. It ain't about some willpower and, okay, let me go do a 40-day dry fast, let me go do a 6-month long fruit diet. Like, no, this is a totally different program, and I'm trying hard to bring that message to people, because it needs to be understood. This is not, even though there are people that from where most people are, it looks like they're on this extreme level, and they are, because they've been working hard. So they've gotten themselves to fairly clean state. So in comparison, you're looking at some of the things they're doing, like, what the heck? Like, what? It just doesn't compute, and for a lot of reasons. A lot of people still trying to hold on to the nutritional belief systems, and a 40-day dry fast isn't really gonna do well, if you're trying to hold on to that kind of thing. And so, so like I said, these are more advanced cases in discussions, and I won't get too deep,
Yeah.
too much deeper in.
I wanted to add, with me, it's like when I first got into the transition, I used Brother Air's experiences as an inspiration, but for me, it was really about testing some things out on my body, and so I really looked into the nutrition theory. I really looked into the protein theory, and I was able to test that by just doing the first year. I mostly did like those kale salads, like I mentioned, with fruit for lunch, and that already like proved to me that these nutritional theories were not real, and I was getting fitter and fitter and more vitality, and so for me, it's like it does come back to the transition diet, because you start to realize that these things are possible, but you also understand that you have to transition to that level. So for me, it's like the other day, actually, a friend introduced me to a guy who's struggling with his weight. And he was like, oh, yeah, Tony is like, he knows all about detox and stuff like that. This is how my friend framed it. And uh, and I had never really thought about that. Like even up until this point, I had never really actually looked back on my years of practice up until this point and looked at my diet, and it's like, wow, I've really, in a lot of terms, it's like I've been almost on like a, you would say detox, or somebody could say fasting level. It's not always fasting for me, but um, the things that I have not eaten just prove to me, how far I've really come using the transitional principles that I've used. And so when I look at something like a 40-day dry fast, um, I see that as a potential for myself. And for me, it's all about analyzing transition. So I'm at this point in my transition right now where it's like I'm just like analyzing these different protocols and methods that I can use that are rational for where I'm at. For example, I might go through cooked mucusless to raw mucusless, and then might do, let's say, like a week on fruit, and then I could do like a few days on juice, and maybe I'd do like a 24-hour dry fast, but I'm not even really messing with the dry fasting too much. But then I would come back down and come all the way back down and then do it again. And it's like you do that every week or every 2 weeks, and then look where you will be in 30 years. You know what I mean? It's like you have this incremental growth as you get cleaner and cleaner, and the principles stay the same. Like you are always an air gas engine. You are always existing in V equals P minus O. So it's just how are you going to deal with that reality, and so that you can maximize this body. You know what I mean? And so yeah, so it always comes down to that transition for me,
I
man.
mean,
I'm just,
if and this is an interesting way to think about it. I mean, if you're gonna be extreme about anything, be extreme about the transition. Like
hmm
study it, get into it. Look up the etymology of the word transition, and look at the science of different transitional sciences. And like I said, I used to study physics, and in this previous video and blog post I put up, I do a long discussion about how I was making philosophical analogies, just looking at laws of physics, and it might not have coalesced exactly with the like mathematically with the thing, but just conceptually it was like I just was doing deep analysis and critical thinking of the concept of transition. And so that's where, because I knew that the cans, if Dr. Morris says that detoxification is a golden key, then I say transition is the platinum key. You know, because that will take you, that'll take you to the top of the mountain, and then let you stay there if you want to. And so that's that. So let's move on. So there's a question. It said, "Hello, will you share some of your own experience with the Mucusless diet?" And so and I got a ton of videos where I actually do that, and so I won't say too much about it here, but there's I got a lot of blog posts and all that kind of stuff. So I'll actually send you some links to some of those things where I talk kind of about my experiences. And Spira Speaks Dialogues and Essays on the Mucusless Diet Healing System is a great book that you can get, that I put out about a year and a half or 2 years ago, that it gets into some details. I mean, it gets deeper into transition. It gets into some real practical information about me working with some other people with their own transitions. And so through that process of working with people, I talk a lot about some of my own experiences and things that I did. But yeah, so I'm constantly kind of talking about that, and so I will refer you to those things. But yeah, I mean, it is a profound experience. I mean, it is like speechless. There's not a lot to as you can really say about it, because it, it takes you into some real deep and heavy things. But again, it's all about starting from where you're at and looking at what you do, and how can I make what I'm doing a little bit better? How can I make what I'm eating a little bit less mucus forming? What can I trade? If I'm dealing with the wheat spaghetti, can I do steamed spaghetti squash, acorn squash? I mean, what kind of, that's the kind of analysis that you want to get into in terms of the incremental changes. Because for every mucus forming food item, I believe that there is another item that's a little bit less harmful, that that's just about as satisfying, if not more satisfying, that you can step to. So you can, kind of go from A to B, and that's the kind of deep understanding of the transition. A lot of people are resisting some of the logic of what others have kind of experienced with this piece. Again, because they're coming from the the raw food paradigms and the nutrition paradigms, and so a lot of what we talk about in terms of the Mucusless Diet Healing System is somewhat counterintuitive, and so that's part of what we kind of talk about. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. I wanted to address, there was a question about vaccines. The vaccine thing has come up, and I was tagged in a post, and then right now on the actual video, someone has posted up a question, wanted to know when vaccines become mandatory, how will you avoid getting them? Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, there is definitely a war of ignorance that's going on, and there's a level where I just don't even deal with it, because to me it's so crazy to you're gonna put poison in you, and then they have like the immune system theories, and you put this certain poison in, and then it's gonna make you immune and stuff. And I just don't get into that. For every study that has ever been done, that has been supported and funded by the pharmaceutical industries, there are people that are also from the medical establishment that have done studies and looked at statistics and found how devastating these poisons can be. And every time they have an outbreak, or they have or so-called outbreak, or people start getting these different things, they want to say, well, it was because they weren't vaccinated, or polio stopped because of the vaccinations, as opposed to understanding that these different things are like cyclical. Some of them they come, plague came. I don't think the plague left, didn't it? People dying from the stuff that, like, the plague killed a ton of people. Almost whatever the statistic is, like 60-70% of Europe died from the plague. Did they use vaccines to get rid of the plague, or did it go away by itself? Um, so all of a sudden in the 20th century, when stuff started going away, they want to attribute it to the poisons that they're giving to people. And so, like I said, this isn't let me do the disclaimer. This is not medical advice. If you need medical advice, please go seek a counsel with a medical professional. This is just an opinion, and my opinion is I'm never going to do vaccines. That's all I'll say. I'm never going to do them. My children are never going to have them. And to the thing of what happens when they force you, I mean, if you look at history, what have the best people done? Like, if they were in an oppressive system that did not allow them to be who they wanted to be, what did some of the greatest stories ever told have been about groups of people that migrated out of tyranny, out of insanity, and created their own reality, created their own nation, created their own communities. So that's where my head is at with that kind of thing. It's a bit more of the radical. I mean, yeah, we can try to. I'm all for staying here and trying to change things here in terms of by any means necessary. So you got the legal system, you got these corrupted systems that are already set up, but there are ways to make changes within them, and people that are called to do that as part of their passion. Then I don't get in their way. Do what you can do as long as you're on the side of righteousness with this kind of thing and not on the side of stupidity and ignorance. But in terms of when the going gets tough and things get to the point where we can't really do what we need to do and practice a diet. I mean, when they don't want to let you have natural childbirth at your own home, with people that what's the word with the folks that do that, the different doulas and that kind of
The
thing.
midwives, yeah, doulas,
Midwives,
yeah.
and that, when they want to try to make that illegal, when they want to try to force you to pump your child with this stuff that and they want to try to sue you if they try to think that you made their child sick. I mean, that's the insanity of a pus and mucus society, and I will have no part of it. And the only way that I will either cut myself off from that or I leave. And when I leave, I'm going south toward the equator. So I'm not scared to go, and it will happen because I don't. It's at least where I live at. I don't think that it's going to be able to catch up to where I'm at and where the people that I'm with are at. So at a certain point, it's going to become too uncomfortable to be here, and so we're going to have to, find asylum elsewhere when we want to, and then just build our own thing. I mean, I don't make sense to me. But in the meantime, you just do the best you can do. I mean, again, for me, it comes back around to that hardcore we were talking about early on. This kind of hardcore attitude of, I'm gonna say these things as I'm kind of opening up a little bit more than I normally do, because I know this I don't know if it bothers people, I don't know what, but when I really get real, I notice sometimes I scare people, turn people off. But I tell you, the way that I really think about the way I am in this world, in this society, is that of someone that's trying to become free. Like we talked about the plantation model before in another video. I mean, like this is war, but it's for me it's nonviolent because I don't want to hurt anybody. If anything, I want the same thing for my enemy that I want for my best loved ones, which is do some enemas, get into the Mucusless diet, heal yourself, because my worst enemy will get themselves together mentally, will stop being so sociopathic and psychopathic, they get their diet together, and my loved ones can heal and be around a little bit longer. And so that's kind of the win-win situation. But I got to protect myself, and so I need to do what I need to do to get to the next day. And so for me, there's just no compromising with ignorance when it comes to this level. And you have, and to do that, you have to be strong. You have to be willing to sort of stand for what you want to do, stand for what you believe in. Show up. If there's I've done organizing. There's that route in terms of, like I said, sometimes you can deal with the system. Go outside of the system, organize. Community organize, raise awareness. For me, my activism and my protest is teaching people about the Mucusless diet, because I believe through the Mucusless diet, this whole thing can be transformed. Because until you've really done it, you won't understand how much your mentality can shift and things clear up, and stuff that you used to think was rational becomes the height of folly and ignorance, and you just don't want no part of it. And it's a true transformation of the world. A lot of people don't want this kind of peace, love, and tranquility. They're fighting against it. You're kicking and screaming. They're like, I don't, that's like, they still want to go to the clubs and get into the fights. That's what I used to do. We go to the club and we be scrapping with people. They still want to drink the alcohol. They still want to eat all the mess. They still want to smoke whatever they do. They want that. They want chaos, because pus and mucus eating breeds chaos. For a lot of those kind of people like you, they have to clean themselves out, get rid of some of that constipation, and they will all of a sudden they'll be sitting there one day like, you know what? I would like peace. Peace would be nice. It would be nice to be peaceful. Why am I going to this club and picking fights with people? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, it literally, it just changes you like that, and it happens through experience and automatically. You don't have to you don't have to go read philosophy and try to, and where some people do that stuff and it's fake, because they'll try to read a bunch of stuff and then they'll try to, try to come out with some Gandhi kind of, I'm non-violent and I'm, and inside they're kind of, they haven't really cleansed that out, and then sometimes these people snap. They'll be putting on this front, and then all of a sudden they get to a point they snap, and then it'll be like, so and so, beat up 5 people today at the shopping center, so it's deep, but anyway.
Yeah, I would add on that, some of the ways you might respond. You might have to change your job. I know with me, I work in a job that's connected to the public schools, and actually I've been getting little emails here and there like, Tony, might be time for you to get a new flu shot and stuff like that, TB shot, and I just delete the email, and but like push come to shove, it's like you might be able to find a career option. You might have to go to school. You might have to do something that could maybe give you a path around, a career that might force you to try to do vaccinations. But ultimately, it's going to come down to the person as an individual. Some people use the excuse of, I have a family, so I can't quit my job, therefore I have to get the vaccine. Other people use the excuse of, it's just too hard to not get my child vaccinated, so I did it anyway, but we're going to try to live as healthy as possible. There's lots of different reasons why people end up vaccinating themselves or their children, but push come to shove, the question is, like Spira said, it's how serious are you going to be? I know with myself, I've made some choices where I've not done some things because of vaccines, and maybe some things that I might have even wanted to do. So push come to shove, I'm going to say no at every turn, and I don't really care what is going to happen, because you got to look at it in terms of what could you do to justify your own enslavement. There's nothing that you can do. It doesn't matter, like if you're free from a certain kind of enslavement, but you know that you are freer than you would be, that is always better than allowing. You can't sell yourself into slavery and justify it. So you have to have that kind of mindset that this is kind of like a path to freedom, and anywhere where that door to freedom leads, you're going to take it. You might not be the millionaire on top of the hill. You might be a person living a very humble life, but you're able to really live your life. So whatever route you're going to take, my suggestion would be just try to go the route that is the opposite of the vaccines, because those are not going to accelerate your health in any way. So, but really that's one of those topics, like you mentioned, that's like almost with the mucusless diet, it's like we don't even really need to talk about vaccines.
Right.
This thing is so opposite.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just like you're doing this thing, and that is there, but it's just so far. It's like we don't even have to talk about why you might eat meat.
Well,
Like I don't
yeah,
have to
yeah,
suggest
yeah.
meat sometimes. I don't have to suggest vaccines sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I will give here's the warning. I mean, the one thing to think about is when with these pharmaceutical medications and vaccines and all these things are designed for people that eat pus and mucus forming foods.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't know what these things do, and if you go to them and you do something and then you get something that one of these things, they're not they have enough, like they have enough poison in them that for most people that are pus and mucus eaters to not necessarily feel the effects, right? And now, even like I said, there's a lot of case studies where people do feel the effects and people die and whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
the majority of people, they're kind of just, they're all right because they're they got enough, they're filthy enough so that poison is kind of counteracted, and it doesn't harm them in immediately. I mean, that stuff is housed in you, and then what a lot of people that are going through these detoxes are realizing is, darn it, I wish I didn't have this in me because now I'm going through some hell trying to get this out of me. But but there's one person that I know that was practicing the Mucusless diet for a couple years, and she wanted to go and sort of be in this nursing thing, not be a nurse, but she was like doing a thing, and this was years ago, and she went to get she wanted to get a certain job, and so she sort of was like, all right, well, I just need this job, and so she got the vaccine, and she was bedridden for 3 days.
Mm.
It was over. I mean, she was done. Because on a mucusless diet body, oh man, that's some scary stuff. I mean, you're talking about uh, all the garbage they put in that stuff, or whatever, rotten eggs and chicken embryos or whatever, monkey, I don't know. It's what's that song?
Yeah.
Stir it in my witch's brew. I got magic. I mean, it's like it's a straight witch's brew of concoction, of just poisons, whatever, and it's sad, but yeah, like I said, there's only so much that we can even say about that, because I'm not interested in getting into, like, look, all those real case study kind of analysis and people that were analysis, political kind of argument, all that kind of stuff. Like I said, I would just leave first and be like, all right, let's do this, because now you're talking totalitarianism. I mean, when you get into that, now it's already starting to look like 1984, the Orwellian novel, for people who don't know. But so we're already in the Big Brother kind of reality, and because now we look at how many screens we have. I mean, we're looking at a screen right now. People, you got your screen on your phone. You got screen on your iPad. You got screen when you walk into a waiting room. You walk into anywhere where there's got screen. Our lives are screens are everywhere, and there's certain things that are being broadcast over and over and over again that really deplete your intellectual capacity and just totally compromise your consciousness. And unless you really know how to sort of diffuse and go against that, then you definitely can fall victim to that whole real deep brainwashing piece. I mean, it's not really a question of are you brainwashed, it's just how bad, and what part of what a lot of us try to do is, okay, this process of regeneration is also a process of re-education and putting ourselves back together mentally from the ground up, understanding that we've been totally compromised, and we got to go back to basics and really learn how to think, because they don't teach that in school. They really don't teach you how to think. What they privilege in terms of what they consider to be intelligence is, can you memorize things? Can you add things up? Can you do these sort of mathematical equations? Can you memorize? How is your memory? If you read something, can you remember what they say? They don't necessarily privilege great philosophical thought. the SATs, that's kind of my area, sort of, quantitative analysis and, philosophical understanding. That's what I do in my PhD, but I wasn't able to kind of express that kind of intelligence. That's not what they measured in those tests, because that's not really what they want. That's not what's privileged. Thinking for yourself, the ability, to logically reason and critically analyze something, that's not, unless you get into, certain kind of, like liberal arts graduate studies, it's really not a part of school system, and I started learning those kind of critical thinking skills a great deal from, folks in the Mucusless Diet community, as well as folks in what they call the Black consciousness community, and people that are, kind of the African American sub community that are really into studying and really into kind of analyzing, questioning history, questioning things. So that's where I was able to kind of blossom and bloom there. And it wasn't until I was like into my PhD level studies when I really had come across studies where they kind of encouraged you to do that kind of critical thinking and analysis for yourself, like question everything and see if you can develop a good argument against it, and that's something that I try to teach that as best I can. It's like, you have to realize that you have to learn how to think, because most people just want to know what to think, because again, that's what we're taught, what to think. That's why memorization is privileged over logic and thinking through and critically analyzing something, because that is what is better if you want to work at a 9-to-5 job or work in the military or work in a lot of these things out here. It's not about the creative thinking. It's about do what you're told. Can you remember what I tell you? Can you do what I tell you to do?
Hey, Spira, I'll be right back.
Okay. And so that's that. Got kind of way out there, but the moral of the story is just analyze, think for yourself, be critical, but be critical in constructive ways, because there's definitely a way to be critical in a negative way where nobody really benefits from whatever, it's not really good analysis going on and nobody's really benefiting from that, and so I'll get into that another time. So let's see. There was one other question that I got that, okay, this is a question about being an athlete and kind of weightlifting and stuff, and can that be done on the Mucusless diet? This person said that they had been vegan in the 80-10-10 fruitarian and raw food thing, and they kind of talking about how much fats and stuff they were taking, but then they got to a point where that really wasn't working, and the teeth was getting messed up and emaciated and that kind of thing, and so now they're kind of back into this little fruit and with some salmon and protein powder and that kind of thing. So they're just looking at the mucusless thing to see if this is a path. And so what I would say is, of course, salmon really has no place in the mucusless diet. Protein powder definitely doesn't have a place. That's not where you want to go. But what you want to do is interrogate what I talk about, the sort of the middle part of the transition diet is often ignored. And what I sort of look at as the middle part is the cooked mucus-free foods. Cooked squashes, cooked acorn squash, cooked zucchini, summer squash, butternut squash, baked sweet potato, steamed broccoli and cabbage and greens, and now the steamed vegetables like that, people will get into that more so than really exploring the cooked squashes. And I'm saying that there's something about those squashes because they're relatively mucus free. I mean, you've basically cooked a lot of the starch out of them, uh, and they for the most part they eliminate well if you combine them properly with the raw salad. And it's satiating. It's very satisfying if you're used to eating heavy things, or if you're a vegan, and you do the processed vegan foods instead of your soy burger. Try an acorn squash, a big cooked acorn squash, and see what that does. Now, in terms of strength training and that kind of stuff, uh, there's not a lot of it. There's a well, I'd shared the group with you that Doug had created, that's athletes that practice a mucusless diet. And I'm a fan of the athletic spirit and mentality as it sort of applies to practicing the mucusless diet. And that's kind of like this, go home, go hard or go home type of attitude. And Brother Air really sort of, I think, championed that with the mucusless diet, because he kind of brought an athletic mentality to the way he practices the mucusless diet. But in terms of actual strength training, I tend to more advocate the natural exercises. I'm not interested in building up, for me, that's just not really a natural human physiology, that whole muscle thing that has been propagated over the past 40 or 50 years. I mean, I don't, that's just for me, that's more of a product of pus and mucus society, in terms of just the all that, big muscles and that kind of thing. I mean, for me, a lean physiology that is oftentimes has real strength, has more strength than that big old stimulant based type of thing, is a bit more of where I'm at. But there are people that are doing different levels of the weight training, and it depends on where you put your transition at. We don't get into no calorie counting. No, we don't really analyze the fats, whatever. It's like if you're craving something and you use it in terms of transition, you get into it, and you don't necessarily have to analyze it, and beyond that, just you get into it. Are you eating it in a way that it's going to eliminate decently? And you kind of leave it there. That's as far as you really need to analyze, in terms of, you don't have to get into, well, is this really the calories, or am I getting this fats and this? It's like, look, overall, you want to avoid fats. I mean, just in general, but that doesn't mean that you're totally fat free all the time. In terms of what you do, I'm a strong advocate against avocados, because I find them to be virtually the most addictive plant-based mucus former. It blew my mind, because I'd went years without eating them, and then just a couple years ago I went back, just because everybody was doing it, and I was kind of talking against them, but I hadn't had any in a long time, and so I was like, all right, let me take one for the team. Let me put myself on the table here, on the experimentation table, and we go through this process. And it was crazy, because it's just a slimy mess, and it doesn't. I will take cooked starch, in terms of, what I was talking about before, the cooked starch, meaning you cook the starch out of it. The acorn squashes and the spaghetti squashes and the zucchinis and the summer squashes and the baked sweet potatoes. I mean, I would take that any day over an avocado, and that's me. That's mucusless diet, perspective. That's mucusless diet wisdom. It's not gonna bode well with a lot of the people that, the raw food mentality, because the raw food mentality is be raw at all costs. Mucusless diet mentality is going to be transition toward mucus-free at all cost. And notice I said transition. I didn't say be mucus-free at all cost. Transition toward mucus-free at all cost, which gives you that space to transition, to do what you need to do to get to those, to get to those levels. And let's see, Tony, back here. You got anything to
What
add
was
to that?
what was this question? Yeah.
Well, this was something about the uh, can you work out? Can you
Ah,
strength train on a mucusless diet and that kind of stuff? And I said, a lot of us don't really think like that or really get into
yeah,
that
yeah.
that whole
Right.
level of consciousness. There's a handful of people that, like I said, not
Yep.
directed them to the athletes. Athletes that practice Mucusless Diet Healing System. That group. There's will be
Okay, yeah.
for someone that wants to explore some of that kind of thing. But
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Man, I would say for this individual, you have to completely change how you think about that. You know, for example, a lot of my friends here in my town are into martial arts, and um, I could be into martial arts as well, and I used to go to their training stuff, and what made me a little bit, I wouldn't say angry, but what I critiqued real strongly about the martial arts paradigm as I see it is it has a lot to do with, okay, we're going to do 100 push-ups, then we're going to do 200 crunches, then we're going to run laps, and then we're going to do some martial arts training for a half hour. Um, and what I was saying is that I really wanted to do some very serious martial arts techniques um, over and over again, and so that it became like second nature to move my body like that. Um, the part about developing your strength and all that is just, I have a very different view on that, because I think that things like agility, flexibility, precision, accuracy, coordination. I would say that physiologically, those are higher level skills than just strength alone. And a lot of times we're not really focused on that. So, for example, before I tried to do 500 push ups, I might rather try to walk on a tightrope. Like, that's how my mind thinks about some of this stuff, is like, let me develop my agility. Even like standing on one leg for a long time, that actually, a lot of things like that actually tone your body in a certain kind of way, because you're using all your muscles to balance yourself. um, so that's one way to kind of flip your paradigm. Another thing is, I agree with Spira that the natural exercises are really the only way to go. So like climbing, walking, um, natural stretches. Like if you look at animals, um, they always start every single day with stretches. If you have dogs or anything, you'll notice that the minute they wake up, they stretch their back, they stretch every single leg, they stretch their toes, they stretch their neck, they yawn, um, and this increases blood flow, um, and kind of helps oxygenate you, helps move your lymphatic system. Um, So when I think about exercise and fitness, I think about things like that. I think about moving my lymph system. I think about oxygenating my body, uh, and um, I'm really against the idea of like, let me eat a certain way so that I can exercise. I don't think that your transition necessarily should change because you want to get fitter. Um, you could do exactly what you're doing, exactly what's comfortable to you, and apply some basic natural exercises, and you'd be really surprised how your fitness develops. Um, Another thing that I would say is that you're going to go through some eliminations, and these are going to be counterintuitive to the physical fitness that you want. So, like, let's say you're on a basketball team, and it's like you're training every day, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Um, like, I'm not going to say that's not going to work, but what I'm saying is like there's going to be days that you're going to be able to out train everybody, and there's going to be days that you're going to be a little bit tired, and Um, the one thing that a lot of detoxification specialists talk about is a certain kind of exercise can be acid forming. Um, and the piece about that is that our body is so obstructed that when you start exercising, you can release so much waste from your system at one time that uh, it can become detrimental to your transition. So that the application that I have done is let me do this first and then do that. So, and I would encourage people to have that mentality is let me do a serious mucusless diet transition to where I have this thing down. And then with this new understanding, with this higher consciousness, let me look at the fitness part through a clear mind. Because you do not want to bring in the mucus pus fitness paradigm into the mucusless diet for a number of reasons. So I would say do this first, then you're going to have a clearer mind, some new understanding, and do that. Because some of these principles that the mucusless diet runs on, it's like we have to come up with some principles that are going to fit the fitness paradigm. The air gas engine piece, like throwing out nutrition, throwing out the protein piece. The fitness paradigm, as we know, is built on nutrition. It's built on the protein idea. So you're going to have to get rid of that, and then you're going to have to look again at the fitness piece. And I personally feel like I have that down with my understanding. And so for me, it's a very gradual, comfortable fitness development. Like I do yoga. I'm into fitness, but that doesn't mean that I'm trying to stick to a regimen of 2 hours of yoga every morning and all this stuff. Like I take it as it comes and I put this thing first, and I've been surprised how my fitness is just like going through the roof just by cleaning myself up. Like my muscles become better. My breathing becomes better, my endurance and stamina and flexibility, that all increases by the mucusless diet alone. So it really takes a paradigm shift, and I just say, clean yourself up first before you try to apply that.
Yeah, that's some real good points on that, because a lot of that to me looks like just in terms of a lot of that fitness world and the athletes and stuff. I mean, it's fueled by pus. I won't even say mucus. I mean, it's fueled by pus. Period. And what I think it is, it's really a holdover from that old, kind of, Neanderthalic kind of time, and that old, the barbarian and the gladiator and you're gonna have these these monsters, and we will worship these monsters. Like you watch the movie Gladiator, you got to get that perspective of that sort of that hero worship. It's like these slaves were given fame. They didn't have autonomy. They were slaves. They couldn't just leave. Maybe if they somehow got enough favor with a particular king or master, they could earn their freedom in some way, or they could earn some kind of higher status where they had less of a slave status. But they were slaves, yet they were given this platform of, as long as they perform well and as long as they win, then they can sort of be worshipped. And so the ego looks at that and says, well, if all I have to do is be a slave, but I can be stroked and I can be stimulated, I can be exalted, I can be immortalized, then I will be a slave, and I want the glory. I want that. I want to be, I want to be able to go beat someone up and then sort of revel in the spoils. America, America. I just feel like I just described America. That was my. If somebody ever asked me what's the definition of America, I'm gonna make that clip. Like here's that because that's what that's where it's at. It's like I will be a slave as long as you give me my moment to bask in my own narcissism. I mean that
Mm.
from Facebook to the YouTube to the uh, to all of these different avenues that we have of places to kind of indulge in our own waste, I would say. Uh, it's just open season for that kind of thing. I'm trying to use these kind of tools in a way that help, in a transitional way that helps people, wake up and clean themselves in the way that people have helped me. So I think it's not evil. It's like it's a tool. It's how clean are the people using the tool will discern what they do with it. Because as I've done videos before on the guys that do the guys that eat the reckless eating guys on
Mm.
YouTube, millions of views on videos of them puking, like day after day after day. These guys get together with just their friends. They get together. They eat 40-year-old rotten eggs and canned stuff from the 50s and exotic foods that are just nasty and living animals and all this kind of stuff. And almost every video they have a vomit alert on it. They puke. So they have a YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel. Dr. Morris has a YouTube channel. So it ain't about the tools. You don't have to vilify the tools. I have a Facebook account. Those guys have a Facebook account. So it's really not about vilifying the tools. It's about how clean are the people using the tools. And that's really where that is. And so I'm not against just like trying to just totally like, okay, I'm not, whatever, I'm gonna just unplug. I mean, if that's your path, then you do that. You unplug from society, and then I talk to you in 30 or 40 years. But but for now, most of us, we're trying to help each other, try to educate and get over these humps and do it, kind of do it together. And so it's a different thing, and we can use these tools as a means to do that. As I talked to a brother yesterday that I think he's in his 60s, and he practiced the diet pretty heavy back in the 80s. And I was telling him, I was like, man, I wish you could have known Brother Aaron and the folks in Cincinnati. He's like, yeah, man, that'd have been great, because I was like the only dude doing this thing. There was nobody else that was around me doing it, and I was just trying to do it. But back then, it was worlds apart. There was no internet. There was no way for people to find each other that had common interests like that from far away. I mean, you would have to create some kind of, like mail out a newsletter or newspaper, or there was different ways of doing it, but it wasn't as efficient as with this internet piece. And so you just take it in stride, and my thing is, you deal with the tools that you have access to right now. And you try to use them transitionally, because what I say about technology is you use technology to transition off of technology. And because in the process of you getting cleaner and cleaner, you get to the point where you no longer need technology. Because technology, even if you take it down to its basic fundamental level of just being something that aids the human in doing something, in doing work, doing some kind of some kind of work, or a transfer of energy. So something like the invention of the wheel, or invention of any kind of tool. I mean, that's all technology. And the cleaner and cleaner you get, what we see is you need less technology. Because you need less things, and that becomes part of a path of sort of higher learning and taking things into another level. But in terms of where we're at, you use these things to get off of worse things, and that's what I try to try to stress. So yeah, I think this has been a fun little question and answer session. And you got anything any closing words? I don't know if anybody's asked any other questions before we get off of here, but you got some closing thoughts there, Tony?
I'll just say everybody keep transitioning, and I'm right here with you transitioning. So let's just keep it going and keep the questions coming because I really liked being able to sit down and kind of talk over some of these things in a go through a number of questions at once was interesting. It was fun looking at what kind of things are coming out of the mucusless diet community. And I think something you would say, Professor Spira, is that asking the right questions is a really profound source of evolution for all of us. So let's try to get into our practice and try to come up with like the best questions we can, and uh, it will help us all keep elevating. So with that, yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. So I appreciate everybody doing their thing and the questions and this kind of this new format. We'll see how it goes, and I enjoyed it. And yeah, so now if you have questions, what I ask you to do is go to my Professor Spira Facebook fan page, and it's for Professor, the full word of Professor, and then Spira, Spira. You plug that into Facebook, then my fan page will come up. So if you have questions you want me to kind of address in this manner, just list them on my wall, and I'll kind of compile them, and maybe once a week or something like that. When I get some time, I'll do one of these, and we kind of have some of these discussions and get into some of this, a little deeper into some of this stuff. Interesting to check this format out, because up to now, like I said, most of the time I've done it in writing, where I would sort of create a piece of writing and then broadcast it out, where I would share it with the person that asked a question, but I also would sort of share it with other people because it would help other people. But give this a try, see how this rolls. So thank you all for tuning in as always, and we'll talk to you later. Peace, love, and breath.